Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're doing something a little different. We're going to build an entire civilization, right from scratch. We're talking about the foundational blocks of one of the world's most incredible and enduring cultures, ancient India.
So here's the thing. The story of ancient India. It doesn't kick off with some clear timeline of kings and queens. Nope. It begins with a total mystery, the shocking discovery of a lost world. A massive, super sophisticated civilization that just, poof, vanished for thousands of years.
Okay, so here's how we're going to tackle this. We'll explore this vast history in 4 key parts: the lost civilization, the age of ideas, the first great empire, and then we'll wrap up with the golden age and its incredible legacy. Let's dive right in with that mystery. All right, so our story kicks off with the Indus Valley Civilization. And you got to understand, this was a massive urban society that was just gone, wiped from history until archaeologists literally stumbled upon its ruins back in the 1920s. Can you even imagine?
And listen, we're not talking about some small settlement here. The Harappan civilization was huge. Its territory was larger than ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia combined. But here's the crazy part. For all its size and obvious power, we have absolutely no idea who was in charge. Seriously, no grand palaces, no fancy royal tombs, zip. Nothing's ever been found.
What's just mind-blowing is the sheer level of organization. I mean, just picture this. Entire cities laid out on a perfect grid, the most advanced sanitation system in the entire ancient world, complete with covered drains, and every single house was built from standardized bricks. That points to some kind of highly coordinated central authority, even if we have no clue who they were.
And the puzzle just gets deeper and deeper when you look at the stuff they left behind. You've got this famous priest-king statue, that beautiful bronze dancing girl, and literally thousands of these intricate seals. But their stories, they're completely silent. And why? Because their writing, this complex script with over 400 signs, is still a total mystery. We just can't crack it.
So then, around 1700 BCE, this incredible, advanced society just fades away. The best guess? Climate change, shifting rivers, the cities were just abandoned. And into that empty space, a completely different culture would rise up, and they would lay the next foundational block for India.
Okay, so let's move on to that next block. We're going to see how a new group of people, the Indo-Aryans, brought a totally different kind of blueprint. This time, it wasn't about bricks and mortar. It was about ideas and a new way of organizing society. This Vedic Age, well, it was a time of massive change. It starts out with this semi-nomadic culture, right, where your wealth was literally measured by how many cows you had. But over hundreds of years, they start to settle down. Iron tools and rice farming come into the picture, and that leads to a settled agricultural life. And those old tribal chiefs, they start turning into powerful hereditary kings. And it's in this later period that a new social blueprint gets drawn up to create order, the Varna system. Basically, society was organized into 4 distinct hereditary classes, and each one had a specific job. You had the Brahmins, the priests, at the very top. Then the Kshatriyas, who were the warriors and rulers. Below them, the Vaishyas, the merchants and farmers. And finally, the Shudras, who were the laborers.
This era also gave us the foundational scriptures of Hinduism. It all starts with the Rig Veda, which is this collection of hymns. But later on, you get texts like the Brahmanas that get into all the rituals. And then, and this is a big one, the Upanishads come along and introduce this whole new wave of deep philosophical thought.
Yeah, the Upanishads were all about asking the really big questions. What is reality? What's our place in it? And the sages came up with this pretty radical idea that deep inside every single person, there's a soul, the Atman. And get this, that individual soul is actually part of a universal divine reality called Brahman. That idea became an absolute cornerstone of Indian philosophy.
Okay, so we've got the physical foundation of cities from the Indus Valley. We've got the philosophical blueprint of ideas from the Vedic Age. So what's next? Well, you need a political structure strong enough to bring it all together, to unite most of the subcontinent for the very first time. And that brings us to the Mauryan Empire. This thing was founded in 321 BCE by this super ambitious guy, Chandragupta Maurya, and the empire just grew at this insane pace. First, he takes down the Nanda dynasty. Then he defeats one of Alexander the Great's successors. But it's his grandson, the legendary Ashoka, who expands the empire to its absolute peak, right before one single fateful battle changed everything.
That battle was the Kalinga War in 261 BCE, and it was just brutal. A horrifyingly bloody conquest. And when Ashoka actually saw the scale of the suffering his ambition had caused, he was just shattered, overcome with remorse, and it led to one of the most incredible turnarounds in all of political history.
He just completely gave up on military conquest. Done. Instead of ruling by the sword, he decided to govern through what he called dharma. Basically, a policy of nonviolence, doing the right thing, and being tolerant. He was literally trying to replace conquest with compassion.
And this wasn't just some vague idea, you know. It was actual policy. He had his principles carved onto rocks and giant pillars all across the empire so everyone could see them. He appointed special officers whose only job was to look after the people's welfare. He promoted Buddhist principles and poured money into public works. He was governing on a totally new moral foundation.
And that brings us to our final building block. You could call it the masterpiece. Centuries after the Mauryans, a new empire, the Gupta Empire, steps onto the stage. And they would preside over a classical age where all those earlier foundations came together to support this brilliant explosion of culture and science.
Yeah, under rulers like Chandragupta I and the great conqueror Samudragupta, the Gupta period became known as India's golden age. It was this incredible era of relative peace and prosperity, and that just fueled these extraordinary achievements in art and intellectual life.
I mean, the list of what they accomplished is just staggering. You get this exquisite art, like the very first stone temples. You get literary masterpieces from playwrights like Kalidasa, major advances in medicine and astronomy. But maybe, just maybe, their most important legacy came from math.
I'm talking about a concept that would literally change the entire world. The idea of zero as an actual number. Think about that. It wasn't just a placeholder anymore. It was a revolutionary concept that forms the very bedrock of all modern mathematics, all modern computing, everything.
And this wasn't just theory either. In astronomy, a guy named Aryabhata calculated the length of the solar year with just astonishing accuracy. He came incredibly close to the measurements we use today with all our modern technology. It just shows you how sophisticated their science and observation really was. So when you think about it, from the urban planning of a civilization we can't even read, to the philosophical depths of the Upanishads, the moral governance of Ashoka, and the sheer brainpower of the Gupta Age, these weren't just separate events in history. They were the building blocks. They created a legacy that continues to shape our world in countless ways. So the real question isn't what happened then. It's now that you know where these blocks are, where will you see their echoes today?